So in our last class, we created our first entity, that is employee entity, and then we generated the runtime objects. As a part of runtime objects, we understood like it creates three things. One is the DPC extension and base class, and second one MPC base and extension classes, and then the OData service. So DPC stands for data provider class, and its main purpose is basically the DPC gives you the methods to implement your business logic, nothing but your credit queue operations. And MPC basically stands for model provider class, and it takes care of the data type structural related changes. So that's MPC. And then OData service. So basically the OData service is the interface between the front end and back end. So we have successfully added the OData service to the SAP Gateway system. And we also seen the metadata document of the OData service. So let me open the metadata document. So this is 72, and let me give the /$ metadata. One second, not this one. Yeah. So let's go to this is SEGW. This is our OData builder, service builder, and let's go to IWFLD main service. So let me search for our service, that is ZB72 underscore something. Yeah, this is the one. Now select it. So you can call this browser. Yeah. So this is our OData service URL. So this also we have seen in detail. Like this is the domain name pointing to the server wherever it is present in the world, and then this is the folder path /SAP/OPU/OData/SAP. So basically remember, any OData service will reside in the same path /SAP/OPU/OData/SAP. Okay, and then this is the OData service name. So now if I append $metadata, so this is called the metadata document of the OData service, so which basically tells you about your data model inside your OData project. So this is your data model. Okay, all right. Now the next thing we are going to do in today's class is we are going to implement our first operation, that is query operation. Query operation end to end. So this is what we are going to do in today's class. So front end to back end. So part 1 today. So we may not complete entire thing by today, but part 1 is completed. Okay. So basically the query operation means you can pull all the records of the table, or you can pull some subset of records from the table by applying filters. So how to apply the filters and all we'll see at the lateral stage. But even before that, we need to understand how to implement this query operation to pull all the employees of the table. In our last class, we understand that in the runtime artifacts, there is a DPC extension class, and the DPC extension class is responsible to implement all the business logic, including all your methods. Okay. The DPC extension class has created the 5 set of methods corresponding to the CRED queue operations. So employee set underscore create entity. So this method is for implementing the logic for create operation for employee table. So don't forget, the DPC extension class will create these 5 set of methods for each entity. This is a very important point. The DPC extension class will create the methods, 5 set of methods for each entity. Okay, now we have only one entity, that is employee entity. So with employee entity, there are 5 methods. So tomorrow if we create another entity, so again with that entity, again 5 set of methods will be there. Now out of these methods, so this create entity is for create operation, delete is for delete operation, update is for update operation, get entity is for read operation. So read operation means you can read only a single record from the employee table. And get entity set is for query operation, and query operation means you can read multiple records. So that means I need to write my business logic inside this method. I need to write my business logic inside this method. Okay, fine. So how to write the logic inside this method? So you need to go to this edit mode. So go to the edit mode and select the method which you want to implement the logic, and then you need to click on the redefine. One second. Employee set underscore get underscore entity set. Where is those buttons here? Once again, the server looks little, the interface looks little different for me. Employee set underscore get in underscore entity set. So here we get the redefine option. I'm not able to find it. Yeah, it's there, but there is some scroll bar issue here. Yeah. So select the method which you want to implement with the business logic. So I selected this method, employee set underscore get underscore entity set, and click on this redefine method option. So click this, and then you will get this method skeleton code. So this is not required for us. You can delete this. It's a commented code. So now let's write our business logic for the query operation. So I want to pull all the records of the employee from employee table. So I need to write select star from ZB72 underscore employees table. Okay. Now this particular statement, select star from this particular ZB72 underscore employees, will pull all the records from this table. It will pull all the records from the table, that is fine, but these records has to be sent to the front end as a response to the OData service call. Okay. So if you simply write select star from this particular table, the data will not go to the front end. You may get the data into this method. Okay, you will get the employee records into this particular method on this particular statement, but the data, these employees will not go to the front end. So how to send this particular data as a response to the front end? So for this, SAP has given some parameters, the useful parameters here. So this particular place is called method signature. This is called method signature. Now in this particular method signature, you will find one parameter, so with the name, with the description called returning data parameter. So you can see the description. The description was written as returning data parameter. Now what do you mean by returning data parameter? Returning data parameter is a parameter in which if you keep the data, it automatically sends the data to the front end. So as a developer, you no need to worry about how to send this data to the front end as a response. So that is not your job. The OData framework has given this returning data parameter, so whose name is ET_entity set. So the OData framework tells you, hey Mr. Developer, you keep your result, you keep your records into this returning data parameter, then I will send the data to the front end, you no need to worry. Okay, so what I will do, select star from ZB72 employees means select all the records from this table and keep this result into table ET_entity set. ET_entity set. Now what is ET_entity set? It's a returning data parameter. Fine. But if you see the data type of this, the data type of this is TT_employee. TT stands for table type of employee. So who has created this data type? This data type is created by the MPC class. So this is what the MPC class will do. The model provider class automatically create the corresponding data types basing on the entity that you have created. You created employee entity. You created employee entity and automatically it has created this TT_employee data type. So basically what is TT_employee? TT_employee indicates it's a table type and which in turn indicates it can store multiple records of employee table. So that is what is the data type TT_employee indicates. So your ET_entity set, ET stands for export table. Okay. So ET_entity set, which is a returning data parameter, and it is also matching the exact data type which needs to store the all employee records. So here we are selecting all the employee records. So obviously when you are selecting all employee records, you can keep those only in a data type which is TT, table type of employee, correct? So the data type is matching. Now I can simply place all the records in this ET_entity set. Okay, so your OData framework automatically create these kind of data types in the MPC class. So we don't need to worry about these data types. Okay, so the returning data parameter is ET_entity set. So you as a developer, you need to blindly keep your result. Okay, so select start from this table and keep the result into this ET_entity set. Automatically it takes care about the data type of ET_entity set. Now let's activate. So we need to activate the method. Yeah, so now this is active. So we have successfully written our first CRUD operation, CRUD queue operation, which is query operation logic into this method. However, this is not as simple as this. We need to we need to add more functionality into this method with filters and sorting in the future. So we'll do that. But to start with, so this is good. Okay. Now let me open the PPT. So let's open this PPT. Now here in our end-to-end data flow, we know that, so you have written the logic in this query operation, that is get entity set method. Now inside this query operation, you have written select star from this particular table. That is fine. But who will call this method? If you don't call this method from SAP UI5 application, do you get employee data? No. So writing your business logic inside this particular method is fine, but unless you call this method, this business logic will not get executed. This business logic will not get executed. And we very well know that SAP UI5 cannot directly call this method. SAP UI5 cannot directly call this method because this method is part of your ABAP layer. This method is part of your ABAP layer. But one thing we know, and that is SAP UI5 can call the OData service. SAP UI5 can call the OData service, but SAP UI5 cannot call this backend method. Okay. So from this, what we need to understand is SAP UI5 will call the OData service, and this OData service in turn makes a call to this query operation. Now let us see what is that OData service which will make a call to this method. Okay, so this is very important, guys. So till here, this is OData service URL. Okay, till here, this is OData service URL. And after the OData service URL, whatever we keep, so this decides which method to call in your backend. Okay, now listen carefully. To call this particular method, which is employee set underscore get underscore entity set, you need to provide, after the OData service URL, you need to write your entity set name, employee set. So you need to provide this after the OData service URL. Now if you hit enter, this will go and call this URL, this OData service URL will go and call this query operation. So from the browser, this is my browser. So from the browser, I called OData service. So the request has gone from this browser to the SAP Gateway server, and inside the Gateway server, it has called the OData service. Okay, and the Gateway framework has redirected the execution to this query operation method. As a result, I got all the records. So you can see Amit, Anil, Babji. So all the 3 employees we got. Okay. So my dear friends, this is very important to know which OData service URL will go and call which method in the backend. Okay. So this is a very, very important communication, important thing to know when you are working with SAP UI5 projects. So I can still say there are many developers who work in SAP UI5, still they get confused in this particular mapping of which OData service URL will go and call which method in the backend. Okay. So this is called the original OData service URL. This will not change. So remember, this will be fixed. This is always fixed. The only thing that changes is after this base OData service URL. So whatever the extra part is there, so only this one will change. Okay, for various methods of various entities as well. Okay, right. So from this, what we need to conclude is, so whenever you want to call the query operation of any entity, not only employee entity. Let's say tomorrow you create a project entity, then if you want all the records from that particular entity, so you need to copy and paste that entity set. So as of now, this is employee set, so I kept employee set here. So till tomorrow, if you create project entity, then you need to keep project set here. So like this, whatever might be the entity, if you want all the records from that particular entity, then you need to give that entity set name after the base OData service URL. Clear? Fine. So now the data is coming as a response to this OData service call that I did from the browser. Okay. So this is the OData service URL which I need to call if I want all employee data. All employee data, if I want, I need to call this OData service URL, right? But this OData service URL actually should be called from SAP UI5 application. So this is my SAP UI5 application. This SAP UI5 application should call the OData service. But as of now, for testing purpose, I just called this OData service URL from the browser. However, your SAP UI5 application is also running from browser only. So for testing purpose, even though you call this URL directly from the browser also, it is showing you all the records. So whatever the records that are present in your table, so all the records it is showing you. Now our next task is how we can call this particular OData service URL from SAP UI5 application. So this is what you need to understand. Okay. So from the backend part, the query operation is over. Now let us see the front-end part. Okay, so let us see the steps involved in pulling the backend data into the front-end SAP UI5 table. Okay, right. So for this, I'm opening my Business Application Studio. Okay. So by the time the Business Application Studio starts, we'll write the steps involved in calling this OData service URL from SAP UI5 application. Okay, so step number one. The step number one is creating the destination in business technology platform with the details of gateway system. This is step number one. Now let us understand why this particular step is required. Creating the destination in business technology platform, BTP, not BAS. Some people get confused between BTP and BAS. Okay, so BAS is Business Application Studio, which is a tool to develop UI5 applications. So BTP is cloud platform, business technology platform or cloud platform, both are same. Okay. Now what is the meaning behind this particular line? We need to create a destination in our BTP with the details of the gateway system. So why this is required? See, your project is present in Business Application Studio, correct? Your project is present in Business Application Studio. So now assume this is Business Application Studio. Your Business Application Studio has no idea about your SAP Gateway system nor your OData service. Yes or no? See, this is my Business Application Studio. Does it know that there is some Amirpet in Hyderabad where my OData service is present? No, it does not know anything about your OData service. That is what is step number 1. We need to make our business technology platform know about your SAP Gateway system. Why it should know about our SAP Gateway system? Because our OData service is there inside the SAP Gateway system only. Our OData service is there inside the SAP Gateway system only. So first of all, you need to create a destination. So what is destination? So basically a destination is a configuration with the details of SAP Gateway system. So with that configuration, okay, destination configuration, our business technology platform, this BTP, as well as your business application studio, both will come to know about this SAP Gateway system. They come to know that there is a SAP Gateway system with this IP address, with this port number and so on. Okay, right.